Come on by and have a bite at the CrossRoad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. Today, we start something new. For the next several Mondays, we're going to look at your purpose, how to find out what it is, and how to celebrate that in your life. Hey everybody, Steve McCurdy, host of the CrossRoad Diner. With me once again, John Burnett. How you doing, John?
I am fantastic. Living life.
Good deal. John and I both, we got together and met because we were both speakers, and we're working with a coach that's helping us develop focus around that. And then we both found out that, our ideal speaking engagement speaks to the core beliefs and identity and identification of purpose. And so we're going to help each other write each other's books, and we're going to do it on here. And so Mondays for the foreseeable future will be sessions with John and I working through the development, the different ways that we express the process of discovering, finding, or creating your purpose and dealing with the evolution of that and the principles that underlie it. What have I missed, John?
No, I think that's fantastic. I think maybe we should put a warning label on here somewhere that says no holds barred. Because I can guarantee you part of this process is going to be failure. And there will be Mondays where we look at each other and go, what are we going to talk about? You can talk because you got your stuff done. But I am lost because I wasted my week, chasing rabbits. So I just think people ought to know that we're going to get real. We have, in the short 6-7 months we've known each other, our relationship has gone from relatively surface to we share stuff together. We share truth together. We are a safe place for each other. And we're gonna trust that as we share the right amount of stuff with folks on this podcast, that it'll be a safe place as well.
Well said. Now, what we want from you is interaction in this process as we are building these. And as John said, it's going to be rough. You're going to be behind the scenes as we build 2 books, 2 training courses, 2 coaching courses. And we're going to reward you for that. We're going to, if you stick with us, it should be its own reward, but maybe not.
No, we send cash, cold hard cash.
No.
His bank account, and we're going to send nickels and pennies and to everyone. Cold,
hard, and cash. So the way that you participate is to send us questions, comments, concerns. How do I, whatever's going through your mind, as raw as what we're doing. And you send that to an email that's CrossRoad Diner, CrossRoaddDiner at StoryMasterMedia.com. And I'll put that in the notes. And as we go forward, I'm going to try to build PDFs that will also be there that you can download and have the notes as we are building. Well, I'm going to share our notes with you. So let's begin at the beginning. We're told that each of us has a purpose in life. John, can you? I've got a paradigm that I like to work with, but why don't you start with your understanding of purpose and the way that you go about talking about that?
Yeah. It's funny to me because it doesn't matter where you are. I don't even. Yeah, I think we're told if you maybe live in the United States and were raised maybe in the Bible Belt, but I honestly believe this is innate stuff that I have met people all around the world that are seeking for why they exist. They know there's something more than whatever they're doing. We're not doers. We're beings. God made us human beings. I believe from my worldview that there's a God and that he created us, and as a result, we have purpose, and that identifying that, getting into that, understanding it is a huge help in walking out our lives. There's over 7.5, probably close to 8 billion people with a B
pushing toward it.
Now.
Yeah.
And yet there's not 2 that are the same. And this would be a frightening idea, but if there were 2 John Burnetts and everybody watching this or listening was looking at two of us and we were identical and our voices sound the same and we look the same. And the Steve, John Burnett, was wearing glasses so people could at least know that his name was Steve and my name was John. Here's the thing. We would still be unique. If you hang out with identical twins for very long at all, you realize they're not identical in every way. You may not be able to tell them apart visually, but you very quickly understand that they have unique purposes and personalities. And I believe with all my heart it's because we are, as individuals, meant for something unique. So that's, and I think if we can get down and identify it and use that as like a North Star for our lives and what we then do, I think it changes everything.
Yeah. And so my deal is, I think every thinking person at some point in their life says, why am I here? And I also believe that the part of us that is not physical, and this is not an original thought with me. This is backed up by a lot of wisdom thinking, and scripture can back it up too, that the part of us that is non-physical decided to have part of it become physical for a reason. And, but we didn't come with instructions. We didn't come with a note, but we did come with hungers and desires and things that interest us and things that call our attention. And those are clues to, a purpose that we could live out that will answer a question or a development thing for us and our higher spirit, in our journey and be a contributor to the planet. So both from I was raised in Christian traditions, but I was also a studier of Eastern traditions, and all that wisdom is not foreign to each other. The truth is the truth in all of it. And the particular parts that people fight over probably are not the hard truth, Anyway, I don't want to get into a debate or you're right and I'm wrong about any of that. What I want to get into is we all have propensities, talents, gifts, hungers. And what John and I are going to try to do is, through our different approaches, identify where you start to determine that so that you can have a North Star. And so that North Star can have parts that are concrete that never change, and the parts that you learn and evolve into, you can change without feeling like you've betrayed something. Yeah. So let's begin at the beginning there, John. What you go about this from a structure standpoint and 6 pillars, or is there something you'd like to say before that?
Well, I want to kind of just really keep it, but I don't want to say muddied down, but just super simple, just baseline. It's what I call your MVP, and it's an acronym for mission, vision, and a plan and action. So the thought process behind there is that we exist. There's a reason we exist. What is that purpose? Why do we be, is what I like to say. Because we're human beings. Why do I be? And then there's vision, okay? And once we have clarity on why we be, then we got to look and say, what do we want to be? So what is the vision of John Burnett living on mission? Now, the cool thing about vision, I believe mission is like in us. Like if we're created with something deep in us, it is a broader, deeper. I wasn't created to be a sports executive, which I was in my career. That was part of a vision at one time in my life, but that's not why I was created. That was just a job I had. That was an occupation that I had. That was a vocation. It was something that I did for a time. And in that position, I did things that lined up really well with my mission, because my mission is just in me and it's going to come out no matter where I am or what I'm doing. Vision is what it looks like when you're living on mission. So if I have a vision for, let's just say, I'm trying to think of a great example. Let's use the canvas. Okay. Mission is like the canvas, or excuse me, vision is like the canvas of your life. Right. So on a canvas, you think about a long, however long you're going to be around, but right now I can see the canvas that's right in front of me. Right. And it's pretty clear. Okay, I'm on a podcast with Steve McCurdy talking about the reason we exist, our purpose, our existence, our mission, right? And so that is really clear.
And how to identify, how to be certain about that for ourselves.
Yes. Now, but there are some things, for instance, part of what we're doing here is we're getting ready to write a book. I've never written a book. It's been a part of my vision for a long time, but it's pretty far out there. And at any given point, it still feels really far out there. And it's fuzzy. It's fuzzy because I've never done it before. Now I've taken some courses and I've read some books and I've talked to some people and I've read how other people but it's getting closer, but it still feels fuzzy. When you and I spoke in this past week about what we're doing now, suddenly that became part of my near vision. Okay. That became something I could see much more clearly. And so that's where vision comes in, and vision changes, right? I've never been an author before, but now it's part of my vision, and it's about to get real part of my vision. It's going to be real crystal clear. But at some point I will have authored a book, and that won't be out there in the future. There might be another book in the future, but right. I'm a coach. We are professional coaches. When I was growing up, that wasn't even a thing. If you were a coach, it was of a sport. Not for somebody's life or their business or for the executives or whatever, sector that you serve. It had a very specific, and now it's a much broader definition. But that became part of my vision at one point as I get ready to leave corporate America. And so vision is a huge kind of next step. And then the third step of the process is the MVP is plan and action. So it is getting real clear about our plan to become the person that we envision. So,
and I want you to do your example, but the thing that I want to put in here for all time is, and I'll get to it when I talk about my structure.
Yeah.
You have to have the flexibility to to create the tension and walk on the tension between creating plans and being flexible to alter the plan as you evolve. Now, the excuse you could use is I'm changing the plan because it's not comfortable or it's too hard. That you have to challenge. But plan and action is where that learning takes place. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And maybe, after we kind of go through yours, we can maybe give examples as well. But yeah, the plan and the action is where we get super real about what it looks like to live as the person that we envision. So it's, you think about it, mission is why we be, vision is what we do, and the plan and action is how we do it.
Yeah.
So we're getting to that point where at that point, and the fun thing is when you work through this process for your life, and I kind of call it life setting, this idea, your big picture of who you want to become might look freaking hard right now. It may not look anything like you look right now. It is aspirational, but by the time we get down to the action steps, you are identifying with clarity one small step that you can take every day, week, month.
Right.
It becomes, and it's all about traction at that point. It becomes very practical to become it becomes very real to accomplish something that looks very unrealistic.
Right. And the thing that I will add to that is that the vision that you have may be fear and humility and false humility might get in the way of you understanding what it is, but you set that vision and you move toward it, and it very likely will expand because other people believe you can do things that you don't necessarily believe you can do. And then there's the other side of the coin. People believe they can do anything, but then they make the plan and they start doing stuff. And at some point in time, you have to come to terms with the fact that you only know so much. You only have certain capabilities. You've got to increase those to meet that vision. But it should be a stretch goal. The vision should be more than you are now, in my view. When I wrote the podcast, as I've said before, is based on a musical that I wrote called the CrossRoad Diner, which was a place where your that higher vibrational, non-physical part of you goes when what you're living out isn't aligned with what your gut tells you is your purpose and your reason for being. And in order to be there, what a lot of people do, particularly in Western culture, is beat themselves up for not being all that they can be, to quote the Army's PR campaign. In the diner, I have 4 waitresses: Faith, Hope, Grace, and Lucy. And Lucy is the Christian representative, Christian notion representative of an adversary, a tempter, a person who works on your ego to try to keep you off track and keep you from that purpose. And we'll talk about all of those things. But Grace, to me, until Grace does her job, Faith and Hope is kind of where that vision piece comes in. Faith and hope can't have the effect that they need to have until you forgive yourself for being human and being where you are. And not only forgive yourself for that, but look at what that has developed in you. Look at what that has made you aware of. And yeah, maybe there were prices to pay. Maybe you got some regrets, but you can't do anything about those except be accountable and to be responsible and to where you can make amends. So my approach to this is that you are listening to this because you're curious and you got on the podcast. You're continuing to listen because something is resonating with you about your own hunger that's unfulfilled in some way. Or you've been on a purpose journey and you've been struggling with it, and it's not emerging like you kind of thought it would, or you're getting results that are very different from what it is that you want. So both of us, our goal is to help you define and crystallize that vision, that picture of knowing who it is that you are meant to be, and know where you are now on that journey, and look at that gap and make plans to close that gap. Now, I have never taken a trip in a straight line. Every trip I've ever taken, I've intended to go in a straight line, but there are detours all along the way. Those are, my tendency was to look at those sometimes as failures, because bright shiny object syndrome, and I'd go down that road for a long time.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. So this constant assessment of where am I, where do I want to be, is a part that never goes away. You know, John, when I met John, I found a man who was so on purpose that he was making commitments to doing and trying things that he had no idea how they would turn out. And, you know, moving to other countries, moving to places he'd never been before, being there for 3 to 5 weeks and then moving to another one. The humility and the honesty and the acceptance of himself to go, okay, I'm going to put myself in this situation, and I have a North Star. I have an idea of it, and I'm going to call upon that when I get into trouble, or when things aren't going kind of as I expected. Now, the other podcast that we've talked about, and just our visits that we've talked about, you have discovered a lot of things on those journeys that have given you more information about your purpose. You want to comment on any of that?
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite things has been this move. You know, there's so much that's happened in the last 9 years of my life. I won't go all the way back, but I will tell you this, that about 18 months ago, I decided that I was going to become a nomad. No mortgage, no lease, no home that I own or rent to come back to. And then I started kind of having a look into what does that look like, because I am not anywhere close to financially set. So I knew I had to do things on a budget, which was another kind of part of my journey, is how uncomfortable can I be financially. I found out about house sitting. So a lot of my journeys have been taking care of somebody's house and their pets on islands or just in another land. But man, it's going to a conference that I wanted to go to forever. and really just felt like it might be a little too hokey for me. But man, it's called the World Domination Summit. I went there in Portland, and I say, we probably have a relatively conservative audience. I say you probably have. I really don't know for sure, but Portland changed my life, and all I've heard is honestly a lot of judgmentalism about Portland. Portland changed my life. It opened me up. It took a guy, raised in the Bible Belt, kind of really taught what to think instead of thinking what I should think, wrestling with what I should think. And it put me in a place where I couldn't just say, I love everybody. I don't care about your race, color, creed, nationality, what initial you are or who you identify. I don't care about that. I just love you. But I'm hanging out in a place for the majority of my life where everybody around me is more like me than anything else. And so Portland put me in a place where I was in the World Domination Summit, where I was around a ton of people that were not like me, and I got to love on them. And the greatest thing is, not only did I get to be kind and love on them, but I was loved on and accepted, and I was very different from a ton of them. So it's not a one-way street. And everywhere I've been, that's, people say, where's the coolest place you've been? And I'm like, I haven't really, I don't go back and think about the cool places. I think about the unbelievably amazing, remarkable people that I've met everywhere I've gone. And it has been a life-changing thing. And definitely, in fact, I'll tell you one, there's a great book out there called The Dream Giver. And in there, he talks about border bullies, that when you pursue your dreams. And I think it's amazing when I look back. And a lot of times those border bullies are either your friends or sometimes maybe even your spouse, your parents. I told my parents, I love my parents. Don't get me wrong. Love my dad. But when I told my parents I was becoming a nomad and what that meant, the first response from my father was, "You can't do that." And I was so taken back. I'm like, well, I'm a guy in my 50s. I've done a lot of things in my life. This doesn't really seem that ridiculous. It's very different. And I have learned that a lot of people think it is a little crazy.
And you've done screwier things than this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And so, so you can't do that. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you can't do that. You have to have a place to come back to. And I got to tell you, I did something a habit that I'm trying to break. In fact, I believe I've gotten way better at it, but I use some spiritual, I use scripture as a hammer instead of wrestling with scripture. And it's just like the thing that came out so quick that I knew he'd relate to and would kind of shut him down. I said, well, the Bible says Jesus didn't have a place to lay his head. Why can't I be like that? We're supposed to be Christ-like. And it was one of the few times in my life that he was speechless. He had no response to that. Not the right way to use scripture, not a good example for me. But man, I love the fact that I was able to push through that border bully and experience what I've experienced. I've only been doing it for about 7.5 years now, or 7 years, 7.5 months. And I can't wait for this year.
Well, and the response, the border bully notion is very important, because the minute that you try to expand, you're going to meet with challenges. And those are going to come from border bullies. They're going to come from Lucy, throwing things in front of you. Stay the same, stay the same, stay the same. And a lot of it's from your unconscious trying to say, stay safe, stay safe, stay safe.
Well, I was just going to say, when you step out in faith, it's almost a guarantee you're going to second guess yourself. So we don't even need a border bully or Lucy. I mean, we got enough inside our own head that we got to wrestle through. Well, and so, I agree.
That's exactly my point, is that we're going to meet obstacles. Some of them are real. Some of them are things that we should consider. Other things are just no, stay the same. Don't expand. We don't want you to expand. We don't really want you to find out who you are. And those are the things you need to grow through. Discerning which is which, that's a huge challenge. So on this series that we're going to do here, and we're getting really close on self-imposed time limits so that this is digestible chunks. We're going to go through the steps that each of us recommend that you explore or look at for coming to terms with who am I now? Who do I want to be? How do I get there? What do those things look like?
I was just going to say, the last thing I want to challenge anybody and everybody that's listening is come back, show up. Here's the reality. These are life-changing principles. They've changed our lives. They've changed other people's lives. We are not creating brand new stuff. A lot of this is maybe packaged a little bit different, but I think one of the pretty smart guy, I believe named Solomon, said there's nothing new under the sun. And we are bringing it from new perspective, maybe fresh perspective, fresh experiences. I do know that I heard Dave Ramsey one time say a man with a experience is not at the mercy of a man with an opinion. So if you can set your opinions down, even for a moment, and show back up, you're going to learn principles, be challenged and encouraged and inspired to make take life-changing actions that will have life-changing benefits.
We hope that you will join us on this journey, help us shape that journey and refine it. But the human nature is, I need to be in some sort of control of what's going on. And yeah, you do. You need to be at choice, but you also need to be at choice of willing to be confused and willing to be uncertain and humble and open and forgive yourself for that. So that's where grace is going to start. We're going to go through faith, hope, grace, Lucy, MVP. We're going to go through all of that together. We hope you'll join us for that. Steve McCurdy for the CrossRoad Diner and for my good buddy John Burnett. We will see you next Monday. Join us every Monday for another exploration of finding, defining, and moving into your purpose with John Burnett and Steve McCurdy here in the CrossRoad Diner. Send your comments and questions to crossroaddiner@storymastermedia.com. And join us on Thursdays for interviews with people from all walks of life who found themselves at the crossroads and discovered, rediscovered, or began their search for their highest self and purpose in their own CrossRoad Diner.